Hi, I'm Sunil Chilukuri coming to you live from the Aesthetic Show. I get to be hosting, finally, my good friend and colleague, Dr. Michael Gold. He's based out of Nashville, Tennessee, and you have taught me so much through the years. It's like speaking to my mentor. I love it.
No, thank you. But
No,
it's my pleasure to be here.
Thanks for coming. What are we going to talk about today? Should we talk about new laser technology? Should we talk about what's out there that hasn't been published yet? What should we talk about?
Whichever, whatever, a little bit of both.
All right, let's start with something that's old so we can go to new.
Sure.
I was talking just earlier today, 2 years ago or maybe 3 years ago, you presented a paper where they did a 10-year prospective study talking about how IPL can change or almost stop time. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes.
Tell our audience a little bit about that.
Intense pulse light is a light source that we've used for years. That term photorejuvenation, photofacial, has been around for a long time, and I was part of that way back when. And so part of what I've done over the years is spend a lot of time, as you know, in China.
Exactly.
And so during one of my travels over there, came across a group that I do a lot of work with in Foshan, China, plastic surgeon named Dr. Peng Chen. And we started looking at some of her data that she had started to accumulate. And one of the things she was doing, and I thought was just revolutionary, was looking at patients that had what we would consider a treatment, three treatments, and they get great results. But then if we actually treated them every year for up to 10 years, what happened with them? And so based on some work that was done here in the US, Patrick Bitter and the group looked at like 10 patients with that, looking at multiple IPLs sort of retrospectively.
Sure.
And so we sort of said, okay, how many patients in China have you looked at? And we put together over 2,500 patients.
Right, it's amazing.
Which is just unthinkable when we talk about numbers. So we put together 2,500 patients with incredible photography. And then we had blinded physicians look at the photography. And these are people that had been three treatments, then once a year, at least one treatment, and then followed every year with the same one or two treatments for over 10 years. And what we found was if you did that, there was like a 90% improvement in the skin. So somebody who was 40 at the beginning, 50 at the end, looked like they were 35.
I love it.
And so we published those results, and to me, it's one of the groundbreaking technology treatments that have been published. Because again, we talk about 10 or 20 patients, but when you talk about 2,500 patients, that power, that N, is so important and so big. So I love IPL technology, and part of what we talked about earlier today was IPLs form the basis of every platform device almost that exists out there. And people talk about buying platforms or having platforms, and that's great. Platforms do wonderful things because you can add things to that platform, and various companies have added, whether it's the Cyton Jewel X, they have the broadband light or BBL. Then they have the halo on that, and they have other things on that. So by adding other technologies, Lumenis adds the Resurfix, which is a non-ablative fractional, and others add other things. You get the best of all the worlds. Now, unfortunately, if one breaks down, the platform breaks down. But as I said before, in lectures, if you deal with reputable companies, those problems rarely exist. So I don't have issues when the platforms that I have, but I love being able to use my IPL and then at the same time doing a halo procedure, at the same time doing a non-ablative fractional with the Resurfix. So having the technology of IPL, which is so versatile, and all these other platform pieces is the best for me.
No, I agree with you. And I can never forget that day because I was sitting next to my wife as we were presenting, and I think it was either in Thailand or Vietnam, and she looks over at me, she says, Sunil, why are you not doing that to me? And I said, well, you did it 4 years ago, you never came back, right?
Well, and that's
interesting.
The key. And I think the key is we never taught our patients that. We said, okay, here's your treatments, 2 or 3 treatments. You're going to get great results with an intense pulse light. So your photorejuvenation is great, and come back when you're ready. And now the mentality is, as dermatologists, you and I talk also, we give skincare. It's part of what we do.
100%.
And we want to see our patients and we want to see them back on a regular basis. So why not, if you will, a touch-up at a year, another touch-up at a year. And if we do that and maintain them, we can actually turn back time.
I
And
agree.
part of what Patrick did with a group at Stanford, they did these gene regulation
Right.
studies and gene expression studies, and they actually showed that you actually transform the genes to younger genes.
Correct.
And so therefore we've got the physical science and we have the science.
Correct.
And so it makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And for those of you at home who have practices, one of the things that we found is really understanding how to talk to your patient and bring them back. And so based on your recommendation after that, now we say it's like going to the dentist. You need to come see me once or twice a year, and that's just part of what you have to do for maintenance.
Right, and it's like, again, I think the cosmetic world doctors understand. You see a patient for a neuromodulator. Okay, you know you're scheduling them
Correct.
back at 3 or 4 months.
100%.
You're, you know, they may say, I'm not going to schedule now, but you go through the homework or the way we try to educate them, and we want them to come back, and
100%.
we plan for them, and then for 3 or 4 months we remind them
Right.
that it's time to come back. Well, the same with IPL.
100%.
And if you do it, I mean, yeah, it's really a no-brainer.
It's amazing. I don't know if you caught the talk. I gave a talk about 2 or 3 weeks ago. We did a 20-year retrospective study on patients we've been seeing for 20, 22 years, and they look younger today than when we started.
Well, I think if you follow patients and actually treat them
Correct.
when appropriate, when
Yes,
needed.
that's correct.
Okay, I think we also have to be cognizant. Sometimes patients don't need anything,
Correct.
but that's okay. You can go over their skincare routine,
100%.
change it up, make it more with the times if they
Correct.
need new things. But yeah, I think the idea of keeping our patients in some sort of routine is really important.
I agree.
And then again, with maintenance therapy, but with this IPL, it's really
I
revolutionary.
love it. So for those who are at home, what do you notice in terms of IPL technology saying for the old timers who said, you know, you have to have a pulse dye laser and IPL is not strong enough. You either do pulse dye, you do CO2 or erbium YAG. You and I talk about platforms quite often, and one that we talked about earlier, in addition to Luminesce and your Cutera devices, we're talking about like even InMode, where you have a true diode laser that you can plug into
Right,
there.
and so EnMode is another one we talked about, and they have different technologies. So they have what's called Forma, which is bulk heating,
Correct.
RF bulk heating, and I love the combination of bulk heating and IPL
Correct.
together. And they have something called the Lumecca, which is a
Correct.
great IPL. And then they have Fractura built into the InMode, the original InMode system.
Correct.
And that's a microneedling device,
RF
and
microneedling.
it's insulated and non-insulated,
Correct.
so whichever one you like better. But that sort of lets you tailor your dermis with the Fractura, and then you can treat the skin and tighten the skin with the other two. And we did a study with that as well,
Correct.
putting all of them together.
It works
And
great.
the combination of 3 is much better than 1.
I agree.
And I do that with the same thing with something that Venus has called the Versa.
Oh, sure.
And so we're doing that with their technologies
Excellent.
as well, with the Viva and their IPL and the bulk heating device as well. And so we're working on that protocol. Again, how do we maximize our devices that are together
Correct.
with protocols that actually make sense?
That makes sense,
And,
yeah.
and again, I think we've done that. Now, on the InMode, what's interesting, they now have some newer systems, especially on the microneedling side, called the Morpheus 8.
Correct.
And that is a really deep
It's crazy.
needling system.
5 centimeters.
Right. So it's kind of the next generation. And again, tumescent anesthesia or local anesthesia is needed, but the results are unbelievable.
Spectacular. And especially because you don't have to go under the knife, and that's what more and more patients are asking for. Us from
Right, and it's
all
not really
over.
not a lot of downtime. It's
love
just
it.
getting the needles in there.
Correct.
And then the downtime isn't that bad with the Morpheus 8. So I think what we've got and what we've been able to show with the technologies, that you can have these platform devices that have multiple technologies,
Right.
whether it's the EndyMed with the 3Deep, which is bulk heating, and their microneedling, or some of the others, and you combine them all. And that combination gives our patients some really nice results.
I agree with you. So we talk about combination therapy, and we're going to end with combination therapy. So it's not just what's the newest and latest and greatest things that are out there in your office. It's really about understanding the technology and how to hit it from different pathophysiologic mechanisms. So really, it's such a delight.
No, it's
Dr.
my
Gold,
pleasure.
He's based out of Nashville, Tennessee, and we're coming to you live. I'm Sunil Chilukuri, coming to you live from the Aesthetic Show. Thanks for joining us. Thank you so much
Thanks
for
for
coming.
having me.
It's a pleasure.
It's always
Look forward
a
to seeing
pleasure.
you again
Thanks.
and learning more. Thanks.